Can you give us a status of Javier? Is he available this week, or what's his progress been like this week?
Javi is unlikely for this week. He has taken some steps forward, which have been positive. He's kind of in that space where when you're returning back, you have potentially just a little bit of aches and pains and soreness. So we're just doing a follow up to make sure that as he's continuing his return to play, that everything is still stable and in a good spot. And we're hoping that we get that feedback here quickly, and then he keeps progressing. So again, as I said last time, we just want him to, in this process, he needs to check the boxes and feel good doing so before we kind of rush him back into the mix. But so far, things have been moving in the right direction, and we're just going to do one more checkup before we take the next big step for him.
Is the next step is him joining the group in training, right?
Yeah, the next step is more stuff on the field, change of direction, and integrating into training sessions, things like that become the next step for him.
And the status of Sega?
Sega's good. He's healthy. He's joined into full training so far this week and has been great. He's checking all the boxes. So for us, it's just getting him prepared for the game, and also getting him back into full match fitness and stuff like that. But he physically is in good shape, and that's the case for everybody else. Really, everybody else is healthy and ready to go.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Damian. We'll go with Larry Morgan next. Larry, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. Thanks for taking our questions as always. We have a couple questions. One, can you talk about the team's collective state of mind coming off what must have been a disappointing road trip, but they appear to be recharged, finally being at home after a week away? And a couple questions about Samuel. What piqued your interest in him in the first place? And two, of all the players you coached or faced, who would you compare him to?
That last one's going to take a second. Let's see.
Oh, it's not that.
Yeah, the team is the team's in a good spot, I think, mentally. I think they were a little frustrated in terms of just on the road and only getting 1 point out of the 3 games. I think everybody acknowledges the tight turnaround, being on the road for 3, and the challenging sort of environmental issues, if you will, of the week. But for me personally, and I think for the group, the frustration for me really was the first game where we got up 1-0, and it's the first game of 3, and you really want to take something out of that game. For me, before traveling, Dallas was always going to be a challenging game, given kind of where we are roster-wise and being on the road for a week and knowing what the conditions are like in Dallas, having played there for 2 years. So that one was always going to be tough. I think for us this is I know people don't love to see it, but hear it all the time. But it's to calculate what we did well and what we didn't do well. And one of the things that we lacked for the whole trip just was intensity, and I thought we looked, a step slower than ourselves for much of the trip, and so that led to some smaller issues and some details that I thought went lacking through the course of the trip. So it's not to dwell on the last week, but to recognize how we need to continue to step forward and to improve upon our performances, and to bring the correct intensity. Now we're home, and I think guys feel a little rested. We gave them a couple days off, chance to clear their minds, and we started to build on the things that we want to build moving forward. Starting to see a few guys come back into the fold, whether those be injured guys, and over the next week, guys coming back from Gold Cup, I think will be a real positive boost into the group, because as they start to see the team getting whole again. But they're also looking forward to playing in front of our fans and the energy that comes of being in our stadium and being in front of our fans. So the guys are in a good spot. I think they understand this was a blip in the radar, and we need to regroup and put our best foot forward as we continue moving and not dwell too much on the moments that are behind us.
And the stuff about Sam,
yes.
Samuel?
Yeah, Sam is. He's a dynamic player, and that's one of the things we really liked about him. He's quick, he's shifty, he plays on the move. There's a directness about his game when he's at his best, where he's trying to get behind and he's provoking the defense to have to make decisions. And that's something that I felt, as I looked at the group from last year and coming into renewing the roster this year, it's something that we needed to add more of. We have a lot of guys, who kind of play between the lines, as we would say, when you talk about Seba and Jonah and Victor and Efra, these are all guys who need space to play in between the lines, and we needed some space creators. And I think Sam's willingness to give us some of that high speed running into it to attack direct, similar to Kevin. Those guys can put forth 1,000 high speed running meters per game in terms of threatening and depth and space. So those are the qualities that we liked about Sam. He's still a young player, still getting there, but I think his performances lately, I thought he really manned up in the last game when the going was tough and the game was not really within reach. I thought he really put forth a big effort there in the second half, which was nice. So again, I think some of it's just connecting to the rest of the group, that work that he's doing, and execution. It's for all of our guys. It's just executing the final play cleaner and turning work into goals and work into product. So those are the things for me. Who does he remind me of in the from the past? That's a good question. I have to think about that. I don't know if everybody has enough time for me to really think about that. So, I mean, to be honest with you, in Toronto, we never really had wingers, like out and out wingers, which is something I talked about all the time when I was there. So he was different from any of the players that we had there. In which case, different than most players that I've worked with. But there's other players I think in the league who maybe have some similar types of traits as him. I don't have them off the top of my head. I mean, I have to think about it. If it crosses my mind, I'll come back to that answer as we get going.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.
Thanks, Larry. We'll go with Gio Garcia next. Gio, go ahead.
Hey, Greg, great to see you again.
Yep.
I wanted to ask, I know in the previous match you had Victor Vasquez obviously play the false number 9. Is that something you foresee for this Friday's game, or you want to give someone else an opportunity up there?
Well, I mean, I'll speak specifically of the last game. We knew going into Dallas, one of the challenges that we didn't want to get into was a very vertical, up and down, sort of wide open game in the Heat in the third game of the week. So we went Victor in that role to try to let him drop into the midfield and overload the game in a different way to try to control the middle of the field, allow our wingers a little bit to be wider and then at times to work inside. So it was an attempt a little bit at adjusting some of where we would overload and how we would overload Dallas. Early on in the game, I thought for the first 15 minutes or so, I thought we had good pressure on them. We had some chances of our own. Victor had one with the outside of the foot that I know he'd love to have back. I think there was some moments there where there was value to what we were doing. I thought as the game got on and then they kind of score a goal a little bit against the run of the play off of a deflection that puts a guy in. I thought we became a little bit more impatient with the ball and weren't as tidy as we needed to be to hold possession the way I had hoped we had. And so the vision of the game changed a little bit, and then we adapted. We had to adapt a little bit out of that. So it's not something that I would do on a regular basis. It was the third game in what was a difficult week, and I was trying to adapt our setup to help us, again, to have a little bit more some more midfielders on the field in a way to try to hold the ball a little bit better, slow the game down a little bit more with possession versus without possession, things like that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Gio. We'll go with Nikki K with Spectrum. Nikki, go ahead.
Hey, Greg.
Nikki.
First time facing Portland since Derek's suspension. Do you anticipate that he has any apprehension coming back into this meeting with them? I don't know if players are able to move forward, or have you gotten a pulse of how he's feeling?
I have not spoken directly with him. Dan Kalishman, who works closely with those guys, I know he was going to just chat with him a little bit just to see where he's at and see if his mind's clear and all that kind of stuff. I probably will pass by him on the same before I leave today. In general, I think he's in a decent spot. I think time kind of gets you to that spot, and I think he has, and he's moved on to just focus on playing and what's going on. I know back when it happened, he was very remorseful, and it was something that it was weighing heavy on him for a little while. But I think again, time maybe helps those situations from his perspective. So I don't have a specific answer to you other than he's looked okay in terms of training and everything going into the game. Doesn't seem to be heavy on him so far.
And I know playing with a man down, it's obviously a unique situation, and we lost them last time. But is there anything you want to get better within this meeting, or things that you do see that is specifically facing this opponent, this team can be better at?
Yeah, in the first half, we had a decent amount of the possession, and sometimes with a team like Portland, they're okay with you having possession, and they are a team that is pretty good at protecting themselves, and they don't make many mistakes, and they have the capacity to hurt you in transition. And for the first half of the game, we had a lot of the ball. We played the game by and large in their half of the field, or at least in our attacking 2/3 of the field. We were not efficient in creating chances. We were not very calculated in terms of our movements to unbalance them and to create opportunities, which we, as a group, we need to be better at as we continue to move forward. It's something that we got to be better at. When a team sits in a little bit of a lower block and the spaces are a little tighter and the game needs to speed up at the right times, and the relationships and movement need to be tighter, it's something that we didn't do great in that game, but we had a share of the ball, and we know that Portland sometimes can be okay with that. So we've got to be more efficient with the ball in those moments, and make sure that we're not turning over balls in areas where we grant them the opportunity to really transition and counterattack us, because they have some guys who can really hurt you. We know that. And I thought, that by and large was the first half, really, for me. They didn't necessarily have large stretches of possession or put us on our heels with the ball. They had a couple opportunities off of the transition moments, but other than that, we had the lion's share of the ball. When it went down to 10 men, the whole tide of the game completely shifted, and we got unbalanced quickly coming out at halftime, and gave up a goal, I think, within seconds of, if not a couple minutes of the halftime, and that just changed everything. So there were a lot of lessons in that. But again, I think with a team like them, they're very stingy, and they can hang around and protect themselves and play for their moments. And we'll see if that's how they play, or if they come out extending themselves and trying to press a little bit higher and adjust the way they approach us. So either way, we've got to be sharp in how we manage the situation, and be better with the ball than we have been in the last week, for sure, against a team that has enough quality to really hurt you if you're not.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we have one last one from Damian Calhoun.
Hey, Greg, I'm back with more questions. Regarding Larry's question about Samuel, does his runs at least remind you of the way Kobe did? Did Kobe Jones runs back in the day?
A little bit, a little. But Kobe was like an out-and-out winger. He kind of kept his heels on the line a little bit, and Kobe really played for the inline, I think, and he had a signature move that you kind of, if you know Kobe, it's the stop and go. He kind of gets you unbalanced, and then one push with his left foot, and he's beat you out of quickness. There are some similarities in the build, and similarities in kind of at the times when Kobe was slashing and doing different things. It was actually one of the names that crossed my mind because it would be familiar. Though I do think that there are some differences in the way they do things. There are some similarities too. So not a bad shout, Damien. Appreciate that.
And finally, here the transfer window's open. It's closing here next week. You guys have been linked with people all over the world. Are you confident you can get the moves in that you need here before it closes? Yeah,
that's the hope. We we have the capacity. Let's just say we have the capacity to probably make 2 moves, given where our roster's at and the spots and what we have available to us and free. And the question is, there's ongoing discussions. Some things are further along than others, but there's definitely ongoing discussions on the possibility of adding two more players to this group to see out the rest of the season.